Hey Addicts, welcome back. We're here to talk about the Walking Dead comic issue 190 called Storm the Gates. Alright. We're going to do like we normally do. We're going to scroll through, do a little bit of the recap, give you kind of like my thoughts as we go, and then, I'll do the review at the end of the video. So, this episode, I'll just say right before I start, I'm still pissed. I'm still liking it, but we're sticking it out. We're writing it. Okay, so at the beginning of the issue, we get to see kind of a recap or a retelling of what Mercer wants for with Rick and what his plans are. And we get to see Rick still telling him no, and Mercer not liking that no means no from Rick. So we get that little spiel. We move to back at I guess the outskirts of the Commonwealth where we see Eugene, and for the life of me I just still don't remember the name of the chick that he is with. It just elapses my mind. But we get to see that she makes these little comments about like, oh look, there's fire over there. I'm not surprised. The Commonwealth has been in trouble for years. There's been people talking about uprisings. And so, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of a wasted page, to be honest with you, because we don't get anything out of it except for that. So that's a little frustrating. But then we get to jump back inside the Commonwealth and we see that Michonne is running out through the streets because she's trying to find Elodie, her daughter, and when she does find her, we get to see that Elodie, along with her friends in the Commonwealth, are gearing up to fight, I guess, against Pamela, because they agree with what Mercer says. It's kind of not clear what side they're on, but I'm just assuming that's the side that they're wanting to pick. But then we get to see Michonne obviously being like, give me that gun, you sit your asses down, I'm gonna handle this, I'll be right back. And then, a little bit of a comment from one of Elodie's friends saying like, your mom's a badass. So, I mean, that's like, I feel like that's all fine. I was okay with that part. But then we get to flashback, and I think this is just sitting here because Kirkman's just trying to mess with us or meme it up. But we get to see back with Eugene on the outskirts with his girl, and he makes this comment like, do you hear that? And she's like, what? And then they look around and there's the herd, and they're like, oh shit, there it is. They followed us, or something happened. They basically say that it's because of like the explosion that was caused when they were breaking out Mercer that kind of is leading them to this area. So they're on their way to go and alert the Commonwealth that the herd is coming. And with that, you get to see flashback. There's a little bit of exchange. I believe we've seen this panel before with Mercer's trusty guards taking out Lance or telling him to lock up. I feel like that's a reused panel, but maybe not. Maybe we just saw it in a different sense, but it looks very similar. And then we get to see, again, a little bit back and forth with Rick and Mercer. Rick saying that, we'll just get Pamela here, we'll sit down and talk, and, Mercer's kind of like, shrugging off. But then we get to see Eugene finally makes it here, which, they just take the liberty of jumping time because nobody wants to see him running for like 8 panels. But they tell them of the situation, that there is a herd on their way. And I think this one little mention I did like where Mercer's like, where's the lookouts? There's supposed to be lookouts that tell us if in case there's a situation like this that happens. And, the one chick mentions that, Pamela pulled all the guards back inside the community after she arrested Mercer and put him in jail. And which is like, there's reasons that I can think of why she did that, but it's still kind of a stupid thing to do when they seemingly don't have any walls protecting the outskirts of the Commonwealth. At least that's what the kind of impression it gets at later in the issue, but I'll get to that in a minute. We get to see, as Michonne is running through the streets, she meets up with the group that Carl and Sadiq and all the other people are with, and then they meet up with Rick. He informs them of the herd that they need to get inside. Mercer gives commands to his guards and the people, to clear the streets. And that's when the walkers start entering the community, which I'm just assuming if there is walls, they just broke them down. I don't believe we've actually seen walls to the Commonwealth. I think it's just been they had enough guards to patrol it. But that's still, I don't know. That's one thing I'll have to go back and look at previous issues before. But then we get to see, kind of a similar thing to like No Way Out, or even like in the Whisper War when the Herd came into the community. You know, they're going to bar up the doors, tell people to stay away from the windows, and then they're going to just write it out. If they be quiet, they should pass. And right when they're trying to do that, Rick hears this horn go off, and we get to see Maggie and Magna with the army of, I don't know if it's just the army of Hilltop or if it's like the combined forces of all the communities from back home, but we get to see all of them are there. And at first, when I saw this, I was like, oh shit, Maggie, are you trying to storm the gates in the literal sense of like, we're going to attack them before they attack us? But no, luckily, that's not the case. We get to see that Maggie's actually saw the Herd, and she sends out the army to take care of the Herd. We get a little interaction with Yumiko and Magna. It's not very important. It's just like, you know, relationship stuff bouncing off. But then we get to see that, you know, again, Rick and Mercer are having this thing like, you know, we'll have Pamela sit down, and, you know, Mercer's like, well, what if she doesn't listen to reason? And Rick's like, well, we'll make her sit down and listen to reason. So, you get that little point. You know, obviously there's still some stragglers from the Herd dispersal, so all of the people, both, you know, Mercer's people and Rick's people, go out and take care of the walkers that are still there. You get a little moment where Michonne does that with the Lodi, because she went back, you know, obviously where her daughter was when they cleared the streets. And so you see everybody take out all the walkers, everything's fine. You get this dialogue between Rick and Maggie being like, oh, the place looked nicer. Although the one thing I will say here, I mean, I can save it for the review, but I'll just mention it real quickly, is that you know, it's a lot of coincidences, and not to say, you know, a story, multiple stories doesn't have its fair share of coincidences where everything has to line up perfectly, but I feel like this is just like, I don't know, I'm just not buying it this time. You know, I feel like we've seen it so much play out like this before, you know, and I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just the sense it's overplayed, maybe it's just that, you know, it feels kind of like weak writing, that it's like, oh, what are we going to do if a Herd hits the Commonwealth when they least expect it? Oh, we'll just have Maggie show up and problem solved. I don't know. Something about that just doesn't, I just don't like it all. But then we get to see, out of nowhere, Pamela just shows up with her huge army, that I guess of supporters, and she makes this whole thing of like, Rick has been planning with Mercer behind her back this entire time, and that he, you know, told his army to show up so that she could, like, he could take the Commonwealth from her or whatever. And, you know, he's trying to tell her, you know, like, that's not it. I mean, even if she looked around, she could clearly tell that they just, you know, settled a Herd coming, you know. So it's like, if they really wanted to, they could have just let the Herd run through there and take them all out, and then they would have just picked over the bones. But, you know, she doesn't use any of that reasoning in her fucking high and mighty bitch skull, so she's just like, alright, attack all these people. And so, that's the end of the issue. And where I stand, I mean, I'm gonna be frank with you guys. I think I said it in my last video, I'm just done with this Commonwealth story. I don't like any of it. You know, once they killed Dwight, I mean, it's not that, you know, Dwight died that I'm like rioting, no pun intended, because of this, what's happening in the story. It's just like, you know, there's just been one thing after another that's either not made any sense, that's like taken logic and thrown it out the window, or just people acting in like irrational, I don't know, it's just frustrating writing. And I can't say it's really good either, because like I said, you know, there is some like plot things in there that doesn't make quite much sense. You know, I don't know, there's just a lot that, you know, I'm interested to see how, you know, this doesn't end with like everyone dead, because, you know, each side has, you know, weapons and guns galore, and they're standing like, what, maybe 40, 50 feet apart from one another. So if she really said attack and they just started open firing, I would feel like this would end with like, you know, 80% of our characters just dying. So there's got to be something here, or retweaks when they come back for issue 191 of, you know, to make that not happen in a believable way, which, like I said, hasn't really been happening lately, so we probably won't even get that. But yeah, I'm not really sure. I think 192 if I remember right, is the end of Compendium 4. So that means we maybe have 1 or 2 more issues of this story arc. That's, wishful thinking, because I'm not sure if that's technically the case. 191 has this silhouette image of Rick holding up his the arm where his hand's gone, and everybody from both sides is stopped and looking at him. So I'm not sure if Rick's gonna, like I said, I've said it before, and you guys probably know, covers don't mean anything in terms of like what's happening in the story. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it doesn't. So if this is, I feel like this could be an actual thing that happens in the next issue, where we see Rick, trying one more time to do a speech of being like, hey, this is what's happened, and this is all a misunderstanding. Let's talk about this like I originally planned. But I don't know. I'm not really sure what the end game is for the Commonwealth and, its people, and how they're going to interact with the survivors. At this point, I just don't know. I'm at a loss for, what's going on. But, as far as this issue goes, reeling it back here, I can't recommend this issue to people. I can't even recommend this arc, really, looking back on it. I mean, I want to save that for when the arc is officially over, because maybe out of some string of hope, this arc will end on a good note. But I don't know. To be honest, I never suggest skipping arcs, completely, because I think, I don't know. I'm just not one of those people that thinks that, you could, like, for instance, like if you watch the TV show, watch like the first 3 seasons and then just bounce out and then pick up watching like season 8, So I'm not saying like don't read it at all, but I'm just saying like, wait until the compendium comes out and just buy the compendium, maybe, or if you can find it somewhere online, for free, just binge read it, because it's really not worth. It's definitely not worth reading issue by issue. It's not even really worth paying for, in my opinion. But if there's some way where you can get like a bundle deal, or someplace where you could get it for free, possibly, I would just say read this arc, because you're not gonna like it. You're gonna be frustrated, and chances are you're gonna want to bow out after you start reading it. So I would say try to spend as least amount of your hard-earned money as possible, and wait and see how good the next arc is going to be. But anyway, guys, I don't want to make this too long. I pretty much said everything I want to say. I'm not really looking forward to next issue, to be honest. I'm looking forward to the next arc and seeing the aftermath deal into the story going forward after this. But we'll still be here, so, you can come check out. Maybe my thoughts and opinions have changed once we see the next chapter of the story. But I'm going to shut up here, and I'll see you guys later. Peace, Addicts.